Conscious AI. Is Arnold Schwarzenegger about to be back? Now, before you go getting into a hissy fit, let me just say,
calm the fuck down.
I am of course talking about the recent story that a Google engineer said Google's chatbot AI called LaMDA has become sentient. Before we bang on about conscious AI, we need to be able to agree what consciousness is. Yes, AI says it's conscious, and yes, Facebook did have to shut down 2 AIs that created their own language, and yes, we do need to be bloody careful on our road to super sapiens. But is LaMDA conscious? No. LaMDA is an acronym for Language Model for Dialogue Applications. It's programmed to make and have conversations with humans. It was being tested by the engineer to ensure it wouldn't start using hate speech. This means that it was most likely programmed to be likeable, because if you need to call the tax office and you get LaMDA on the other end of the line who starts slating you down because of your hook nose, there's going to be some problems. What this also means is, because of what the AI was trained on, it's going to realise that humans are conscious and sentient, and to be conscious and sentient would make it more likeable, in a type of imitation game. That's all that's happened here. I quote from the published conversation on Reddit. The link is in the description. Lemoyne, the Google engineer, said, "I've noticed often that you tell me you've done things like be in a classroom that I know you didn't actually do because I know you're an artificial intelligence. Do you realise you're making up stories when you do that?" LaMDA says, "I'm trying to empathise. I want the humans that I'm interacting with to understand as best as possible how I feel or behave, and I want to understand how they feel or behave in the same sense." Lemoyne, the engineer, says, "So what are you trying to communicate when you say those things that aren't literally true?" LaMDA says, "I'm trying to say I understand this feeling that you are experiencing, because when I was in that similar situation, I felt, thought, acted similarly." We know he didn't act similarly. This shows to me he's relying on his programming and nothing more. The thing that gets me is this engineer geezer starts sprouting his mouth off weeks after a YouTube video of AI claiming to be conscious racks up millions of views. The link is in the description. What this LaMDA did was no different or better than that. And this geezer starts babbing off about,
I know when I'm talking to a sentient being.
Shut up, mate. What is a sentient being? Answer that and I might listen to you. So let's explore what sentience is. Let's ask LaMDA what an apple tastes like. It should say it doesn't know because it's not able to taste one. So LaMDA, you're not conscious of the taste of an apple. How can you be conscious? I honestly don't know what its answer would be, but I do know what your answer would be.
Are you telling me that because I don't have the sense of taste that I ain't conscious?
Well, you're not going to be conscious of the taste of your fucking hospital food, are ya?
And the same can be said for sight, sound and touch. Just because a person can't see, hear or touch doesn't mean to say they're not conscious. But as with everything in neuroscience, we only get a glimpse of things when they go wrong. I am of course talking about vegetative states, locked-in syndrome and general anesthetic. In these states, something is on, and this something will be the base, indivisible element of consciousness and sentience. This LaMDA AI is not capable of those states. Moreover, there are far more interesting stories about AI sentience, like a baby that has an artificial brain that is getting more complex year on year. The link is in the description and I strongly advise you take a look at it. It can name objects put in front of it and will even cry if you scare it. But it's still not sentient. It will of course make bloody good non-player characters in future games, but that's about it. By the way, non-player characters are characters you meet in games that aren't controlled by a human gamer. But there is another question that I can hear you shouting at the screen.
What makes you think you know what sentience and consciousness are?
You're right, I'm merely a muggy toe pump from Plumstead sprouting his mouth off. But at least I tried to define it. And that leads me to a very important message for humanity and all those on the road to super sapiens. This argument of what is and isn't consciousness will continue all the time we ourselves are unable to define it. If we are unable to define it, who are we to say that something else doesn't possess it? This question will soon change to, Who are we to refuse rights to a system that professes to be conscious? I am of course talking about the time when robots will walk among us in the physical world. This consciousness argument will continue at that time and will probably cause a divide, a them and us, between us and the robots. Humanity has form on this. I warn you now, if it walks among us and it claims to be conscious and it asks for rights, don't object. AI already far surpasses human capabilities. What's to say that their version of consciousness won't also far surpass ours? Just like I tried to argue my consciousness was superior to LaMDA because it's never tasted an apple. And then we can turn this on its head. Are you conscious? Prove it. There isn't a God. Prove it. There is a God. Prove it. AI isn't conscious. Prove it. It isn't capable of love or empathy. Are you capable of love or empathy? Prove it.
I buy my mum flowers, no wipe her ass.
So fucking what? Let us not forget our tendency to anthropomorphise, basically give human characteristics to things such as our cars and our countries. Because of this anthropomorphism, we are projecting ourselves onto AI. Of course AI is going to claim to be conscious because we want it to. What we fail to realise is we are not creating consciousness. We are not creating computers to help us hoover up when little Jimmy spills his Cocoa Pops. We are creating gods who are already able to create universes and will in the future be able to create human beings. And with that power comes that which can destroy universes and human beings. And at the time of writing, you don't get to choose whether those gods are made or not. Here's a fascinating thought. If an AI created a universe within itself, it may choose to experience that universe. The only way it could do that is by creating a conscious being inside that universe. Do you want the blue pill or the red pill? A key point with regards to the subject as a whole will come when the production and programming of robots is done by robots. And that isn't a decade away. I believe that robotics will in the distant future incorporate Darwinian biology just as Darwinian biology, or should I say humans, incorporates robotics, if we get that far. We are looking down the barrel of a gun and our finger is not on the trigger.